If the evolution is going to the point where the customer has now redefined the service, does the industry now need to redefine, like to rethink their SEO terminology and change it because the customer has changed? Or do we need to keep it the same and tell the customer that at its core, it's still a traditional service?
I think this is a marketing thing. I think the fact that it's being called GEO and AEO, that's clever marketing. And the reason I say that is because they're making it's like new, it's buzzworthy. It's like SEOs aren't thinking about this. You need to be thinking about GEO. Come work with us.
We haven't doubled down on it. Are we calling it AEO? Are we calling it GEO? Like, we're very much still like an SEO agency, and we're still getting new business briefs come in because people know that SEO can help with AI. You know, we're not trying to sell this like snake oil type thing to say like, we're going to improve your AI search by doing this.
Welcome to SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Koa Kauwe. I'm excited to have two guests with us that are going to dive into the state of marketing today. For this episode, we actually want to explore what's changing in search, what's getting overhyped, and what businesses should still focus on if they want to win today. So the bigger question I think that we're really asking is, are we really entering a new era of search, or are we just changing what SEO is called? So excited to have you two joining us. Jake, if you don't mind, please let our listeners learn a little bit about you. Give us a little background.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Koa. So yeah, my name is Jake Gauntley. I'm SEO director at Rise at 7 US. So lead all things search strategy for our clients here in North America. You might recognize by the accent, I am not American. So I'm British, living in Massachusetts. Before joining Rise at 7 last year, I was working as part of the IPG group in London for 8 years. But right now, my role at Rise at 7, as I said, is leading search strategy, doing a lot of social SEO, working on like creative digital PR campaigns that are kind of founded in search data. So a lot of fun, creative things that are tied to SEO.
I think that's going to be a perfect intro because our next guest also has experience that's, I think, pretty well-rounded in marketing as well. So Jake, thanks for joining us. Chad, please tell us a little bit about your background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Chad de Lisle. I am the head of marketing at Disruptive Advertising, which is a performance marketing agency located in Utah that services United States-based companies that are typically companies between the size of like $5 million to $25 million of annual recurring revenue that are looking to grow, you know, and we help with paid search, paid social, SEO, Amazon and email type marketing. But you know how I got my start, I go back to 2007. I got started in digital marketing or digital advertising. I was doing, I've worked at 4 different digital marketing agencies. This is my 4th. I tell people that I must be a glutton for punishment or something because I love agency work. But it is really fun now to be in the position where I am a marketer at an agency that is seeking to attract other businesses to come and work with an agency to be, you know, the missing piece for their marketing. So I love what I do. I'm frequently stressed, but never bored. But I'm excited to talk today about AI because I actually I'm a huge fan of AI and use it every single day. So I'm excited to talk about it.
All right. Well, one of the things that I think is funny about marketing companies is that they often don't market themselves very well, or they don't do much marketing for themselves at all. So it's fun to have someone that has that perspective of marketing for marketing. So thanks for joining us, Chad. Don't let Jake's accent intimidate you too much, right? I think that it's more fun to listen to that English accent than our English accent. So excited to have the two of you here, guys. My first question for the two of you is, are we actually entering a new era of search, or are we just renaming SEO? I'm throwing this open. It's an open question. I want either one of you to feel free to jump in here.
I'll respond with my thoughts because I think Jake, I already have like a nose for this. I think Jake is going to be much more of a great technical side of this. I think he'll have more insights than I would, given the fact that like I hire somebody to do my SEO, right? So like I'm not the guy pulling the levers or doing any of that. But I will say, here's my thoughts. High level, I think that the stuff that mattered most previous generation to now still matters most. And what I mean by that is, are you creating quality content? And is your content shareable, right? Like, or likable, like people want to share your content, right? I love the
I didn't know it even did that.
Yeah, you can get,
oh, look at that.
2 thumbs up as fireworks. But so at the end of the day, like, I don't think that we are being asked by AI to do something new. We are just being challenged to level up in terms of continuing to provide even better content and content experiences and content that is shareable, or what, that like people actually find it useful enough that they want to save it, engage with it, share it. That's my read on it. I do think that the thing that does feel like it's changing is execution is being more commoditized. So execution, menial tasks, things that you used to spend most of your day doing are now being done by another system. And I think we're going to see some search share shifting, just as we see things like ChatGPT ads come online, right? Which now I'm paying for ChatGPT ads, which I had never done, until this last week. And so like, there's some cool things that I think are changing that are just competitors disrupting how search is happening, and how, people at large are engaging with content on the internet. So that's my like quick high level read on this. Before I'm very interested to see what Jake says.
Yeah, I mean, not too different to be honest. I think, look, SEO's like always had to change. SEO's had to evolve because we are at the mercy of algorithms, and algorithms change. So, Google realizes people are trying to game the algorithm. It does an algorithm update, and then things slightly change. So there has been the bigger shift in terms of like search behavior, in terms of platforms, in terms of like the capabilities of search, which therefore changes how people use search. People are using AI search or LLMs to get tasks done rather than trying to find information themselves. So like that is a whole change in how a consumer interacts with search. I think in terms of like how the job of an SEO is changing, like SEOs are still SEOing, we're still doing things, but it's just added another complexity to the layer of things that you now have to care about. Like 15, 20 years ago, it was links and tech SEO. Then it was more involved around content and EAT, then PR, and then social got involved. And now you also have to factor in LLMs as well. So it's like we're just constantly adding more responsibilities to the job of an SEO. So I see that, as like I say, I see it more as an evolution rather than just like a complete, go back to the basics and start again kind of thing.
I like that. The evolution is becoming more complicated, I think, from, I want to say, that the marketing of a marketing company. That the customer isn't looking for SEO, I think, today. Then like the high level execs are saying, we need AI, we need AEO, GEO, whatever it is. At its core, it feels like it's shaken a lot of SEOs where they're like, no, you still need SEO. But it feels like there's now a pivot in the industry where you have to realize that when a customer says they need AEO, GEO, you have to accept that they need SEO with a little bit of a twist of what else they're looking for, with whatever that might be, and you're translating that on your end. But I want to ask the question then: if the evolution is going to the point where the customer is now redefined the service, does the industry now need to redefine, like to rethink their SEO terminology and change it because the customer has changed, or do we need to keep it the same and tell the customer that at its core it's still a traditional service?
I think this is a marketing thing. I think the fact that it's being called GEO and AEO, that's clever marketing. And the reason I say that is because they're making it, it's like new, it's buzzworthy. It's like SEOs aren't thinking about this. You need to be thinking about GEO. Come work with us. This is just, in my opinion, this is like the 99 cents play where it's like you can buy it from them for $2, you get it for $1.99 from us. It's like, it's very much a marketing mindset thing. And this is one of the things I love about marketers and also hate about marketers, right? Is that we do this thing, you think cleverly and you just kind of change the terminology and it makes it sound like you've changed the game, and it makes everyone want to come and work with you, which is, in my experience, like really clever marketing. Now, will this stick beyond and become the thing that we call it? I think that is going to we'll see that shake out over the next, year. But I do think, in my mind, this is just good marketing. Somebody renaming it and saying it's a new thing.
So far at Rise at 7, we haven't doubled down on are we calling it AU, or we calling it GEO? Like, we're very much still like an SEO agency, and we're still getting new business briefs come in because people know that SEO can help with AI. We're not trying to sell this like snake oil type thing to say like, we're going to improve your AI search by doing this. We're just like, we know what we're doing, we know what we're good at, and we know that it will improve that, but we're not going to try and like productize it and say like, this is a specific AI strategy. It's like, we're doing this to benefit everything.
I like that, Jake. And I agree. This is such an interesting moment in history too, because of the fact that you have the attention of the C-suite, in these businesses. You've got the attention of the CEO who's watching things on his phone and going, oh man, we've got to figure out how to show up with AI, right? So you've got that attention. So now you're trying to capitalize on it. But at the end of the day, like the things that, like I said, it doesn't feel a lot like the things that matter most stop mattering. When my CEO or others are coming to me and saying, well, how do we show up on AI better? I'm saying like, okay, well, how are you getting more customer reviews? Like, are there more customers sharing about their great experience with you? Because if there are, that's going to help AI, right? Like people they're going to be putting that out there. It's like, how are you creating content that's unique and helpful? It's exactly the same kind of stuff. It's just now it's a new medium that is delivering that. So anyway, I think that there's some clever marketing going on, and to your point too, Jake, internally here at Disruptive, we're not selling it as GEO or AEO. We're still selling it as SEO. That's what we do. And it will help you to get ranking with AI.
And I want to jump on the side of the fence with you guys and say, let's call it SEO. And everyone that's calling it GEO and AEO is maybe just marketing. But there's also those that are truly trying to evolve their SEO strategy to be more AI friendly. We've had them on the podcast, and we have to ask those questions like, what have you really done to optimize for the LLMs? It's a tough question to answer because we talk about the ever changing evolution of SEO. Those LLM algorithms seem like they're moving on the daily, and no one can really optimize for them at this point. But I want to take that question and ask you guys, is AI search being overhyped right now?
This is a mixed one for you. Jake, is it okay if I keep going? I keep talking over you. I hope I'm not jumping ahead of you here. There's some things that come up for me with this. One is, yes, I think that there is always a level of this just being overhyped, but I can't just like explain away the behavior change that I'm just seeing even in myself and the people I know and around me when it comes to like just interacting with and having a conversation with AI.
Can I jump in and ask you, do you have any specific examples of how you feel like?
Can I give I want to give a specific example of this, okay? There is a video game called Elden Ring. If you have not played Elden Ring, I highly recommend it, okay? Amazing video game. And it's a very hard video game. I have loved having an instance of a chat project that I can just talk to about my specific run through Elden Ring, right? The questions I have, the things that are coming up, the build I'm investing in with my character, all these little things. It's amazing because these are all questions that I would normally go to Google and ask one-offs. But now I have something that is keeping track of what I've talked to it about. So it has context and it's providing me much more detailed and helpful results, right? As a result of that. That is new. I've never had that experience before outside of like just talking to my buddy who's beat the game before and said, hey, what do I do at this part? Or what would you recommend? That's pretty cool. That's new and that's interesting, right? Now, the way that this AI is scraping sites and getting information for me is still very SEO driven, right? But I'm not visiting all of the sites that I would have visited before. So they're missing out on my visit. They're going to miss out on my ad revenues. All of those things are happening because now I'm just living within a chat window with an AI rather than going to all those sites. So I think that there's definitely like, that's a big change. That's like a huge difference. And there's going to be a disruption to the economy of how people are making money off of traffic that comes to their site that maybe isn't purchase level traffic, but is traffic they would have benefited somehow from display ads or other things. That's just like a high level and maybe a specific example that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's bang on. It's like we're saying at the start of the conversation, it's like you can't deny that the way that people search and like the different behaviors and what they're trying to get out of search has changed. Like, so like, is that being overhyped? Like, no, like it is quite a significant shift in how we, navigate and find information online. And it's like so much more personalized now that you can have those kind of conversations where it keeps the context and it's like so much more helpful. So like I don't think on a user level, like I don't think it's been overhyped. Like I think it's dramatically changed the way I work and kind of search for information compared to like 12 months ago. I think the part that is being overhyped, and again, this goes probably back to the last question, is the magic bullet that's trying to be sold by all of these different companies. Because everyone's talking about AI, the overhyped bit is people saying, all right, well, just give us a couple of $100 a month and we'll fix it all for you. We'll get you to the top of every answer or whatever. Like that part is being overhyped, but until we have a kind of definitive answer in terms of someone has got proof about, AI optimization working long term, and we have, not rather than months of like data, this is like years, so we can see over time that it's actually working. Like I think people are always going to be trying to sell like the next big thing. Oh, this is how game it. This is how you game it. So yeah, I'm not surprised that like you're saying, C-suite are getting more involved in the conversations now. Everyone wants to know how to show up in AI. Like that's not surprising. But yeah, it's definitely just trying to find a way that um, people aren't like snake oil salesmen. This is like a genuine way to do it. And I think even like SEO has had that kind of snake oil reputation, over the years for a long time. Like, obviously, I'm not saying this is how I do SEO, but there is a lot of the kind of black hat, gray hat where, trying to game the system. But good SEO is really, like we're saying, creating good content, making your brand a brand that people would want to come and visit online. But there's no denying that SEOs have been trying to game the system for the last 20 odd years as well.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up. It took me back to my early days. I just remember, that there were all kinds of tactics that we just look at now and we're like, man, that's just not, now it would just hurt you, right? It wouldn't help you at all because the algorithms are hip to it. But it is so funny. I will say one aspect I think is overhyped, and this is not tied to this search behavior. This is tied to AI output for marketers. I think that's overhyped. And the reason I say that is because, yes, I can go to Claude or to Gemini or to ChatGPT right now and say, hey, give me a newsletter about SEO or GEO versus AEO. I can do that and it'll spit out an article to me. My thing that I will say is that it has just made average, crappy content just more accessible. It's made it easier to just do average marketing everywhere. That's what I would say is the part.
Let me ask my next question because it feels very relevant to what you're saying. Where does AI actually help SEO teams scale? And in contrast to this, where is it being abused and damaging the quality?
Yes. Yes. So I'll finish my thought because it is exactly along this line, which is that when you don't train your AI, and people think that's just like a really easy thing to do. I gave it a prompt and now it's trained. But I'm saying, like, when you don't actually train the AI to match your brand messaging, your tone, all of the different things that comprise what you're actually trying to achieve, and then infuse it with the strategy that you're trying to execute, and with the clarity of where you're going, right? You start to just create lots of average kind of noise in all the channels. And I think if you look everywhere right now, it is just crazy the amount of content that's being created. And most of it is just average or below average. And so I think that there's a real responsibility that we have as marketing leaders to elevate the way that we're using AI so that we're not just proliferating noise, that is not actually going to make a difference for the user who's going to ingest that content, So that's the thought that I would share about that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that AI should help SEO teams with kind of like the heavy lifting, the grunt work, the things that used to take days but can now take seconds or minutes. Like that is great, but removing the human strategic lens is where it becomes problematic. You can use AI to gather all of your data, get some insights, but having the human that then gives it, right, well, what does this actually mean with all of the context that you have about a client, about, them personally, about the business, about how to frame it for them. Like, it's so hard to train AI on all of that. So if you're just completely taking the human out of that, that's where I think you're going to have problems. And the agencies that are trying to, streamline processes so much with AI that it's removing people from those situations is probably where they're going to get found out. There always needs to be the human in the loop. Yes, you can, do the things that save you days worth of time, but as soon as you take out the human strategic element, I feel like that's when it's a race to the bottom. People realize they can do it that quick. They do it that quick to try and save time, save some money, and then you just end up with slop.
I like this. I want to dive into that a little bit. With early on, Chad, you mentioned like commoditization, I think, of SEO, like that a lot of the technical SEO, website development, using some of the tools available today, you can get the technical SEO of a website set within a day easily, right? That's commoditized to a certain extent. So everyone's playing that game. And I love the context aspect of this. Like, so you're using your AI tool and you've collected from a survey everything that you wanted from your customer and you saved it. And that worked for 3 months. And now you're having evolution with this company. They've changed the strategy, and your AI tool, is it choosing what to rip in and out of that saved context, or is an employee actually like saving that and making sure they're monitoring that? Because I think that that's where we have the evolution of like the AI lacking the intuition of a human and using stale data and old marketing tactics and old promotions and current content and just starting to fall apart because it's not actively managed by a human. Tell me how, like, is that a problem that you guys have seen where AI is, dated and and like, if you use it and don't monitor it, it starts to lose its way?
I wouldn't say like dated per se, because I see a lot of LLMs kind of can run searches to try and find the latest information. But I would say like it doesn't give the same output as what a human, like I say, it's that context with it. It's just, right, this on paper might be the best thing, like based on the Google searches or whatever searches that an LLM's done, this is a recommendation. But without the context of what is actually going to work with the client, that is where it just completely misses the gap. So, for example, with like the tech audit situation, if you've automated the vast majority of a tech SEO audit, yeah, I mean, tech SEO is usually very black and white. So it's definitely one of the areas where I feel like automation's fine for like the most of it. Like, is something pass or fail? You have the data to back it up. But then the hard part with tech SEO is the people skills of actually getting stuff done on a client side. How do you then, put tech SEO in a business context that's going to get buy-in for the people making decisions at a client side? Like, I think the job of the SEO team becomes even more about the people skills and client management and all of that than it does knowing how to export all your data files and put them in the right place to do a tech audit. It's more about like, how do we actually get stuff done? And that's often been the hardest part about SEO is, yeah, you can do an amazing content audit, but like, how do you actually get things actioned off the back of that? So AI just frees up more of your time to actually work on getting stuff done rather than all of the work that used to take days to get you to, the first step.
Yeah, I love that, Jake. I actually really agree with what you said. I also would add there's an element of discipline that it takes on the behalf of the marketer or the strategist to have the right operating rhythms in place that help to prevent things like that getting dropped through the cracks. What I mean by that is daily you have your way that you're interacting with your AI, co-agent or co-pilot. Then you also have your weekly rhythms, like, okay, here's the things we look at on a weekly basis, and then your monthly rhythms, and then your quarterly rhythms, where at quarterly you might be zooming out a bit more and saying, okay, strategically, are we evolving? Are we moving in the right direction? Have things changed at the business level that the AI needs context about? And then even zooming back out, it hasn't been long enough for this, but having an annual review and saying, okay, now's time, once a year, let's do an annual review here of how we're utilizing this tool or how our action plan is moving forward. I think just having some of those things in place not only help you utilizing a tool like this, but they help you with your team and with your boss and with your clients. Just having good discipline around what are the the moments or checkpoints where we ask questions and get clear on what really matters most.
What are the preferred tech stacks that you guys are using right now? Can you give us a little insight into the best AI tools that you've implemented for your team?
We're heavily Claude at Rise at 7. We're all in on Claude. Yeah, we've been using Claude for kind of, general deliverable work, but also from a coding perspective and starting to build out our own tools off the back of that. So yeah, we put all of our eggs in that basket.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Claude is where we have been, and we didn't start at Claude though. So maybe I'll share, like, we started at ChatGPT, and felt that we were running into some limitations just in terms of the quality we felt like we were getting from ChatGPT. It felt the most quick and easy and accessible initially. And maybe it was because it was the best marketed off the bat, But then we moved from Chat to Gemini and felt like Gemini was actually an elevated tool to work with compared to Chat. And then we eventually ended up at Claude, which felt like an even better one. And I'll just share from a personal context perspective. Claude felt like the first tool that started to proactively ask me questions whenever I would give it prompts to do. That was like a huge driver for the quality. I loved that. The element that it would actually try to ask me to get clearer before it would give me a result. And I think that just showed it was a much more clever tool to use.
I felt that ChatGPT was constantly asking me questions in a circle of never actually getting anything done. And it was driving me crazy.
Oh, and to the other part that was hard about ChatGPT, and I think that this works for some people and not others. It's just too echo chambery, where it just feels like it wants to agree with you and keep you happy the whole time, rather than like actually chew on something and get to the root of something that's better or challenge you. And so that was the problem I experienced with Chat. But that's not to like poo-poo on it, because I think it's a cool tool. But we've ended up on Claude because it's been a really good partner in that way.
Yeah, I feel like ChatGPT is like a lot of people's like gateway into AI. It's the first tool that everyone uses because they were the first big AI brand name out there. But then it's also like worked against them. Like they have become like what Facebook have for social media. It's like, oh, you're using ChatGPT because everyone else has realized there's other more like niche helpful areas, whereas like ChatGPT is like the layman's version.
I think I still use it for my quick Google searches, right? It replaces the Google search for me for a certain extent, but not the workhorse.
So I use Gemini for that. I feel like Gemini is my new like Google homepage. That's where I go to when I'm doing my what used to be kind of like traditional Googling is now all done in Gemini. But if I'm doing something that's task-based or output-based, it's in Claude.
Well, my next question for you guys is about the similarity I'm seeing between SEO and PPC, which for a lot of my career felt like they could not be further apart. They were two different marketing services that I thought competed with each other for the ad spend or the spend of a marketing campaign. Are they still separate things, or are they becoming one in their search strategy?
So coming from an agency that does not run paid search, for me, it's still a separate strategy. Like in the previous agency that I worked at, obviously it was a big global media network. We actually used to work really close with PPC for most of our clients. But now, having moved to a smaller independent agency that specializes in SEO, I get less kind of experience with that. So for me, my job has become much more focused around purely organic visibility. But I mean, absolutely, like if you're thinking, we know search volumes for a particular keyword within Google. It's not just organic that's going after that search volume, it's paid as well. So if a client is seeing those as two separate channels, it feels like they're missing a trick, because you should know, right, for this keyword, there's 30,000 monthly searches. How are we going after that? Is it something that you need to pay for? Is that something we can get for free? So just because I'm not doing it in my job anymore doesn't mean I think they should be separate. I think it should absolutely be joined up. And whenever I get the opportunity to tell clients that, I will. But yeah, in terms of how that's changing with kind of AI search, I mean, that's not something that I'm dealing with day to day from a paid search perspective.
Yeah, well said. And I would argue that they've always been a bit hand in glove, in my opinion. And the reason for that is that I like to think of the search results pages as real estate. That's a helpful comparison for me. And you just want to put as many houses on that page as you can. And so if you can show up organically and show up on a Reddit thread and show up on a sponsored listing and show up in a paid search ad, all of a sudden, you're looking at 10, 15 results on a search result page and you're 6 of them. Like that gives you an outrageous advantage in the competitive landscape to just be clicked on and then get that attention, right? And then if you're really savvy with marketing, you're not just getting that click, you're also now have them into retargeting and you're serving them more things and all the different stuff. So anyway, coming back to the situation at hand, my paid search budget now includes a ChatGPT ads budget, right? I expect in the next couple of months, it's going to include Claude. It's going to include Gemini. It's going to include, you know what I mean? Like my paid search ads on Google, I'm, testing AI Max now, which is the new PMax version of AI. It's like, I think that you used this word earlier, Jake, which I completely agree with, which is just this evolution, where I think that paid search is really on this front edge of evolving as well, because now there's just new places where attention can be given. Like, here I talked about my little AI conversation about Elden Ring. Like if I'm not seeing ads for the new version of Elden Ring that's coming out, in my AI chat, I'll be shocked, right? I need to start. They're going to start serving me ads and they're going to start saying, oh, have you used this controller? Have you used this cool gamer chair? Have you used this thing? Like that's going to just start popping up. And I'm not opposed to that. I think it's just a matter of us evolving and moving forward with the change. The thing that has been interesting to me to see, and this might not be relevant to everybody, but we're a business where we have sponsored listings, big websites like Clutch, for example, clutch.co, which evaluates agencies of all different types, service agencies, right? That's one of our places where we just have great reputation. We have 365 reviews. Our average review is close to 5 stars. Like we've got really good credit there. And Clutch has ranked really well for years in the SERP. Well, Clutch does not show up in AI except for to be referenced, right? As like a reference. So there's still value in being ranked on Clutch, but is it worth as much as I'm paying Clutch? Clutch is kind of like at an existential crossroads, right? Where now they're not getting as many visitors to their website because people are seeing what their site and their reviews say in the chat window, right? And so their leverage with us to make us pay more for it is now shifting. I can see their whole pitch shifting every month. Now they're like, we're getting you listed with AI, right? We're the way that you get on LLMs. Let's show you your cool new AI dashboard that shows how often you're being referenced and how often Clutch is being cited for your keywords. That's the name of the game now. They're changing it because they know they're not getting as much traffic just directly to Clutch anymore because people are looking in a different place.
I love it because you seem to know the question I'm going to ask next before I even get to ask it. I think that's fascinating to think that their pitch for you is changing, that the value is changing based on being in those platforms. I was at an agency that used a similar top 10 listing program to get visibility for new customers. Brand seems to be changing a lot today. Does brand matter more in search now than it used to? And I want this from the specific side of you're on Clutch. It's brand visibility. That's kind of a unique position in brand visibility that now you're wondering, is it worth it or is it not worth it? These are brand mentions that many companies are trying to force out in bulk now to trick the LLMs into thinking they're the best option. Where does the authority come from that really proves you're the best option? Where does brand exist today in search?
For us at Rise at 7, our whole proposition has always been we can improve your discoverability around non-brand, but we also do work that improves, your brand within the category. And if people are actually searching for your brand in relation to your products, I think that is a huge signal to Google that you are worthy of showing up in a non-brand search as well. If people are searching for your name and the product, Google's going to go, oh, this brand's pretty relevant to the product. And I think that's just the same in LLMs as well. If more people are, asking questions about your brand, like it's a huge signal that you are a relevant brand. So I don't think there's really a world anymore where a website can just build like stable traffic on non-brand. Like non-brand has always been so temperamental. It can, go at the drop of a hat with the next algorithm update. But if you're building a brand at the same time, that is mostly pretty fail-safe. Your non-brand rankings might drop, but you're always going to be there for your brand terms. And like, again, this is beyond SEO. Like, a company should always want to build a brand. Like, no company should be turning around and being like, yeah, we don't really want to build a brand. We just want to exist for non-brand searchers. So like, if you're not doing both, like, it feels like you're not really future-proofing, like, not only SEO, but the company as a whole.
Yes, I love what you just said, Jake, because I completely agree. And I have fallen into this trap. So this is confession time, right? Where for me, my background for a lot of my career was performance marketing, specifically in like Google Ads channels and paid channels. And so I used to really, strut my stuff and get results by just putting all of our budget in the very bottom of the funnel where buying consideration and buying is happening. The problem with that approach is that is where it is actually hardest to win a sale because you're just being price compared at that point, right? Sometimes it comes down to features, but in an industry like ours where there's agencies a million, right, all over the place, a lot of times the people who are just like, oh, I need a new marketing solution, they're gonna come down and they're gonna look at your reviews and they're gonna look at your price, and that's it, right? They're just making that decision at that moment. But if we're building brand affinity first, up the funnel when they're not necessarily looking to buy, it's so critical. You've got to have the balance. I'll share a quick example of this. If we're in a room with 100 people and I'm on stage and I say, okay, who in here is ready to buy a new car? I have a car for sale, right? They say statistically 6 hands will raise out of 100 people. Now, if I said, okay, well, who in here would buy a car if the deal was right? Maybe you get another like 10 hands, 13 hands. But the vast majority of people in the room are not looking for a vehicle. But we ignore all those people who are not looking for a vehicle right now when we just focus at that bottom part of the funnel. We don't focus on the fact that we should be building in their minds who we are and showing up and being helpful for them long before they ever get to that decision point, because then we may not even need a paid ad to get them. They're just going to come to us from our lists or from brand traffic or whatever else. So long story short, brand is so important at the same time as the paid stuff, and this non-brand stuff is important. You just have to have a really good balance, because if you neglect either one at your own peril.
100%. A similar sort of example, but we work with a company that builds and sells industrial gas generators. So it's like massively B2B, tiny search volumes around the product, because like it's very, very niche. So like when you're looking at the opportunity to capture people at that point where they're willing to buy a product, you've got like 10 searches for like a product keyword. But when you go to like the beginning of that journey that someone might end up wanting to buy a generator, you're thinking about companies thinking about like their energy strategy and how they can try and save money on the energy bills. It's like, yeah, not every person searching for that is going to end up buying our specific generator. But if you're building the brand at that very initial moment that someone starts the search journey, there's going to be that trickle down effect of when they realize they need the generator, they're like, oh, that brand gave me all this really helpful information at the start. I'm going to go check out them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think that's you guys had me just spinning through clients in my head, and like they're each unique situation, how top of funnel they can go, how much budget they can allocate towards that. And then your marketing visibility versus like transaction visibility, right? Like we're talking about two different marketing approaches and trying to determine which ones are right. I think that's actually a really interesting part of assessing a marketing agency, because when it goes down to the customer looking at like packages on the website and the deliverables that are there, they're mostly going to look identical as a deliverable, but the strategy behind it is so drastically different depending on the agency. And there's no visibility into that. Read all the reviews, right, to try to understand who they really are. You guys have both mentioned like the brand visibility, and I appreciate both your perspectives. I would love to get a little more actionable on it and understand what are some specific tasks, actions that, whether it's your marketing agency or the client themselves, that they can do to increase their brand visibility today. I mentioned the brand mentions as a strategy I've seen. I think of it a lot like I maybe thought of like keyword stuffing before, where they're just trying to throw their brand at as many places as possible and hope they get recognized. But how do you actually generate authority today in a world where authority as a marketing term feels a little more vague than it used to? It feels harder and less tangible. How are you guys going about building brands?
Well, I'll give the less tactical but still very practical answer. It comes down to me, the very first thing you have to be clear on is actually who you're targeting. And that this is a question that most marketers and most businesses don't actually get to the clarity they need to. And what I mean by that is, if you should be so clear on your target ICP that you also are clear on the anti version of that, or the people you will choose not to work with, because you have such clarity on who you do work with. And the people that you do work with, this shouldn't just be a factor of like demographics. Okay. Like we've all seen it, it's like, okay, they are this age range, they make this much money, they are a male or a female, this percentage, those feel good to put in a slide deck and be like, look, we have our target, right? What I mean, you also have to understand the pain points and transformations that they actually care about. The pain points they're experiencing, which are like the actual roadblocks that they're the pain that they're in, and then the transformations or outcomes that are attractive to them. In nowhere in there am I saying you're getting more detailed about your features of your product or your service. You're just trying to understand, how much do we really understand this client, right? And the reason I say start there is because that will shape where you go to build brand. The places that you're actually creating content, the type of content you would create, the places that you would want to like really stand on the soapbox and gather attention, whether that be through, partnerships with podcasts or email lists, or whether that is in different guest posts that you can do online, et cetera. It's like, I think you have to get to a clarity level that it starts to feel a no-brainer where you would actually go to start talking to those customers.
Yeah, I think from my side, in terms of, the way that we look at it at Rise at 7 is we do from an owned content perspective. People are going to find your website if they're looking for it. That's what you want. If someone's searching either directly for your brand, or if they're searching for information that you can provide that's going to help them, that's when they find the website, when they're actively looking for something. But the way to build a brand off-site, so obviously with like PR, is maybe when they're not necessarily looking for it. They're browsing, they see something that sounds interesting to them, they click on it, and they might see your brand mentioned in a place. And it's being very specific about where you go after those, like the coverage within PR. Again, like Chad was saying, is really knowing the audience that you're going after, and then doing the research to see where are they finding information online on these publications, what are they reading, and using that as the basis for digital PR seeding lists, rather than just being like, I want to get this site because it's like DR50. It's like, I want to be somewhere where it's actually going to matter to the audience, and that you won't just have the value of a brand mention or a link. You're actually going to have an engaged audience who might actually be interested in your brand. And then you've also got the social side of it as well. So again, that falls into the bucket of, people might not be directly looking for your brand in that moment, but the algorithm knows that they're vaguely interested maybe in like whatever products you've got going on, like whatever you're selling, and having content that then is in social and can perform in social in its own right. It's engaging, it's useful, it is actually something that someone would stop scrolling for, but then also ties the brand in a natural way that someone's going to go off of Instagram and search for your brand to get to the website. And being really careful about the way that you have those three things playing together, being really targeted in terms of what each one is doing, and making sure that it's like a seamless brand experience across, on-site, off-site, on social, so that whichever way a brand finds you, it's always going to be the same messaging that hopefully then leads them on to become a customer.
The the link building aspect, I think, is really fascinating, because that's something that Stand Ventures does. The relevancy that you talked about, Jake, I think is where I find it the most fascinating. Like, if you're an e-commerce brand, you can be showing up on any blog across the country as long as it's relevant to what you do, and you could feel pretty good about it. If you're a local company and you're showing up in a bunch of New York articles, Is there actually brand value to showing up in the wrong location today, or are the algorithms smart enough to recognize that that's not relevant for you? What do you guys think?
If they're not already smart enough to realize it's not relevant, like it doesn't feel too far-fetched. If people are just spamming digital PR link building purely to get links at scale, like I think that's where you're going to get found out soon. It's the relevancy of the coverage not only gives signals to algorithms that your brand is relevant about that, but like I was saying, that's where you're going to get the more qualified audience who might actually be interested, in what you're doing. And it's also it's the same with we've been doing a lot of digital PR seeding lists based on domains that are being cited most in AI for particular searches or around particular categories. And again, it's like, yes, it might be, cited highly in AI, but if that page isn't, super relevant, or if that site isn't super relevant, you want to get that mix of the site is visible and has an engaged audience, but is actually going to offer you value outside of a link or outside of a brand placement.
I love that. And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning about, has the game really changed? I think what we're saying is that the things that matter to humans still matter to humans, which is like, is this content good? And is it relevant to me? Like, do I want to save it and use it or share it? Like that's really the game that you're still playing.
Just delivering value is just the end goal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, I actually think that algorithms and these LLMs and everything can be a great gift to us humans on Earth, is if they continue to make it so that it just elevates the quality of what we're being delivered, then I'm all for it. I think the problem is, and this is that sticky middle that we talked about earlier, which is that they can also be a part of the problem when they're just proliferating slop and mess that ends up just creating, not good content everywhere,
Chad, I think you answered my next question again. This is like a pattern here. I'm going to have to like clip things and swap places with it or something. No, my next question is, what are businesses misunderstanding about search today? And I want to see it from a perspective of like, what are some of the mistakes we're making about how we're marketing today in the SEO world?
Well, I'll say again, just creating just to create and to check off tasks. I created my newsletter, created my text posts, my social posts this week. I created my whatever. It's like,
I see it on LinkedIn. I'm like, I posted every day for like 9 months straight. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yes, that's right. I don't know if that's a good thing. That's the great question to ask. It's like, does this actually move the needle for us? And more importantly, let me rephrase that question. Does this move the needle for our audience? Is this important to them? Does it matter? Does it touch their pain points? Does it show them the path to transformation? Is this framing my business and my brand, Disruptive Advertising, as the hero? Or is it framing our customer as the hero, which is what we ultimately want, right? Like, it's like there's so many little pitfalls that I think we can fall into with AI if we're not careful, just from the perspective of it has made it easier to just mass produce stuff that is not very highly relevant or quality.
Yeah, I would say, I think some businesses might be misunderstanding that like there is no silver bullet. And I know we talked about this quite a lot earlier, but there are quick wins that can be done on small scales, but there's not a quick win for like genuine business growth within search. There's so many levers that need to be pulled across so many different teams. Like if someone's coming in and saying that they're going to get you to, the top of Google or whatever platform for $100 a month, and they're going to do it in 1 month, like don't believe them. Like algorithms are so much more complex now that, it is a long game. And anyone who's trying to do it in the short term are probably going to get found out pretty quickly.
I think of that like all the I'll get you ranked on page 1 within the next like 3 months guaranteed kind of situations, and I'm like, that's cool, except for when I see the keywords that you got ranking for and whether or not it did anything. We're out of time here, so I'll end this with the thought that I have for just the overall theme, which is funny. Chad, you might recognize it, but the thought is, have I done any good in the world today? Like, have I completed my operation tasks, or have I actually helped my customer? Have I actually given something valuable back to the industry? And I just think that that's like the summary of what we talked about today is all the changes are going on, but in the end, it comes down to delivering value, whether it's to the client that you have or the customer that they ultimately have. So I appreciate the two of you joining me. We're out of time, so I will hopefully have you back on as guests in the future of SEO On Air. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time, guys.